Hello and welcome back to another episode of Otafu Susume, or Recommendations for My Otaku Spouse. I'm Wesley.
And I'm Jen.
So let's get started! We're here today for round 2 of talking about Gundam Boogaloo!
What? Is that a thing?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Never mind. But no, after Gundam Thunderbolt went over much better than I thought it would, I made Jen watch Mobile Suit Gundam The Origin.
Yes. Oh, it was also the first time you'd seen it too.
It was, yes. I'd been meaning to watch it for quite some time, and I like watching things with you.
Mm-hmm.
So it seemed like a good opportunity to sit down and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Small disclaimer for anyone who is listening to the podcast who has either seen Gundam The Origin or wants to see Gundam The Origin. We watched the OVA version, so 6 episodes. I know the version that got shown on Toonami back when was the version that was recut and edited for TV. I don't know if that means that scenes were switched around, or if scenes were cut, or if scenes were added. But there is 2 versions of this, a 6-episode OVA version where each episode is about an hour long, and a 13-episode TV version where each episode is regular anime length.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So they just took the OVA and then spliced each episode into basically a couple of different bits.
I'm assuming the fact that it's 13 episodes makes me think that some bits must have been cut here or there.
Yeah.
And I don't entirely know, so I'm just throwing that out as a disclaimer.
Fair enough.
So,
So was that only shown abroad, not in Japan?
I have no idea.
I could see the OVA only being shown in Japan because nerds here would spend a lot of money to get the Blu-rays for each single OVA.
And they still do. Unfortunately, I'm assuming that they've never shown the TV version here, because whenever I see the Blu-rays in stores, it's always for the OVAs. And they came in really fancy packaging, and they look great, but they're expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a shame.
Well, I mean, every single anime DVD Blu-ray is really expensive in Japan, which is why it's really hard to see a series.
Yeah, but for this one, there's 6 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all at full price.
Ooh, well, like about $100 each.
I know there's a lot of special editions. You'll sometimes see them in the stores, these big cardboard-looking boxes with the logo stamped on the front for Gundam The Origin, and they look great and all that, but I don't exactly know the price. I just know that it's a bit rich for my blood.
Fair enough.
Which is a shame, because, slight spoiler for the episode, I rather enjoyed this and I wouldn't mind donating.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it too. Like, the animation was pretty.
Yeah. Also, brief background for everyone. There is a manga, Gundam The Origin, that kind of retells the story of Gundam with up-to-date art and going more in depth here and there, which they couldn't do with the original series as a product of its time in the 70s and needing for TV serialization and money. But the OVA focuses entirely on the events of what I think were originally in Volume 9, which looks back at the history of Best Boy Char. And so this is all, I think the subtitle for this one is like The Rise of the Red Comet, which is also the name of episode 6 of the OVA. And it's all about what made Char Char, and you see other characters, but it's mostly about Char.
And I have no idea about Gundam, the original Gundam, and the only Gundam I've actually seen is Gundam Thunderbolt.
Yeah, we watched Thunderbolt. I think at the time you said if you'd seen like an episode or 2 of Wing. But
Yeah, but I watched that when I was probably 15, and I don't remember any of it, because it's been a little while.
Well, the most important thing to remember about Gundam is that Universal Century Gundam is best Gundam. And as you're watching what I'm showing you, so therefore I'm curating, you're mostly going to see Universal Century Gundam.
I don't understand what that means.
Original Gundam? So they kept talking about dates in this. And they were talking about, the show starts off in, I don't know, Universal.
74 or something like that? 73?
No, I think it started off in like 68. The war starts Universal Century 79. Because you have to give time for Char to grow up.
Oh, that's true.
But
okay.
So everything that takes place in kind of the main timeline is the Universal Century stuff. And then as they did spin-offs like Wing or Seed or those types of things, they made new timelines so they weren't beholden to the old canon.
Oh, so sort of those were alternate universe type things? Oh, I hate it when series do that. Alternate universes where, what if this had happened instead? And it's like,
Yeah, it's not even a what if this had happened. It's just, we're going to tell a new story, and we want to use Gundams because Gundam makes a bunch of money for Bandai. So...
Indeed it does.
And with Wing, of course, it was all about making 5 pretty boys to go off and encourage people to write slash fiction, while at the same time encouraging boys to go buy more models.
I mean, that is why I think I watched a few episodes was because a friend of mine was like, watch this. And it was a girl who was also into BL.
Yeah.
I just never got into it. I didn't like any of the characters. But then again, it has been a long time. So I guess we could dip our toes into that. But
we don't need to. It's fine. I am really biased about my Gundam. As I said already, I prefer the Universal Century stuff.
Nerd.
I prefer early Universal Century because there's kind of like, we've talked about it briefly off the record, where there's kind of two types of robots. You have real robots and giant robots, super robots. And they're used in very different stories. And I like both, but I prefer Gundam to be the real robot style. And as they get later and later, they get more super robot-y, and the designs get over-decorated and stupid, and I just completely check out.
Are Macross super robots, or are they robots?
Originally, they were real robots. They're still mostly real robots.
They can turn into planes.
Yeah.
Which are real machines.
Yes.
So they're real robots.
More or less, yes.
Okay.
I mean, you start getting pretty far-fetched with some of the singing stuff that goes on, but...
Okay. See, I have more knowledge about Macross than I do about Gundam. And so actually, it was interesting because I have, as I said, literally no idea about the Gundam universe, apart from constantly being exposed by Wes and his friends saying Zig Zeon every single time we go to a convention. And that's what I thought when I watched Thunderbolt. Like, oh, I empathize a lot more with the Zeon crew. I really, really like them. I was rooting for them through the entirety of Thunderbolt. And then we came to Origin.
You make that sound like Origin changed your mind.
It changed my mind.
For Zeon as a whole?
Yeah. To be honest, at the end of this, I just hate humans again, which is what I didn't... which is why I hated... Or I really disliked Devilman Crybaby. God, I keep trying to say Devilman Cry. Devilman Crybaby. Because at the end of that, I felt, I hate humans. Humanity's the worst. It can all just burn. And then at the end of this, it was like, oh, well, humans are, the worst creatures ever. But it is an origin story that then leads into the whole Gundam universe.
It is. It's weird that Gundam has become the commercial empire that it has, because now you get shows like Build Fighters and things, which are about kids making little Gundam kits to go fight with each other and have tournaments. When Gundam at its core originally is very much an anti-war message.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good one.
It strikes me a lot of similarities to Godzilla. When you go watch the original 1950s Godzilla, or you go watch something like Shin Godzilla, and then you compare it to what it became during what's called the Heisei period Godzilla, or the Godzilla versus series, or any of that, where it's just men in rubber suits fighting each other for fun. That's what happened to Gundam. And so when you get a show like this that's driving back to the original point, much like Shin Godzilla did, it really, really stands out as being a departure, because they've got something to say, and it's not just go buy cool toys.
Although that's a perk.
Bandai's not going to complain about that, definitely. But at the same time, what I really enjoyed about this one is it didn't just say, well, Zeon's a bad guy, so we have to make him all reprehensible.
True. No.
You get people like Rambarol, and you get to see a lot more into his backstory. He's the old man in the bar.
Ah, yeah.
And he starts as a young man in a bar and then becomes an old man in a bar.
What happens to him in the end?
If we get around to watching the original series...
Oh, we'll find out.
You'll find out.
Okay. And
if we do it, we'll probably just watch the 3 movies because it's faster, and I don't know if I can get you to sit through however many episodes there is the original, especially when it's old 1970s anime.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I might read the manga, though.
The manga's pretty. But I really like how they presented him in the show, because they really gave him kind of to draw the historical parallel that they keep pushing for so blatantly. Zeon is Nazi Germany.
What?
I know.
I couldn't tell.
But
actually, it's funny because even one of the Supreme says, "Don't follow the same folly as Hitler or Napoleon."
Yeah. Degwin says that to Giran.
Yes.
The old man says it to his son.
Yes.
Yes. But so when you get Rambarol, you get someone who's very much the Erwin Rommel character, and that I'm explaining.
I know. I just don't know who that is. I don't do history.
It's fine. No, that's why I'm explaining it. But you get a guy who is very much not on board with what Giran's doing, but he's still a patriot to the ideals of Zeon. He believed in what Zeon Daikun said. He believed in the promise of the space noids. He believes in the fact that they should have rights that the Earth noids aren't giving to them. And he believes that's worth fighting for, but Giren's crazy. And so he's a man who's torn between ideals. And they did a good job, I think, in showing that. He wants to do what's right, but he just can't bring himself to do what Giren and the rest of the Zabi family are asking him to do. And so when you get a bunch of little like picturesque moments like that through this, where they can explore these characters that you don't get in the original series, because the original series is following around the Fetties the whole time. So you get like little bits of Zeon stuff here and there, but this focuses so much more on it.
That's true. I mean, at the start of this series, I did, again, empathize more with the Zeons. Like, I could understand where they were coming from. And I think I was rooting for Char, even though he was clearly a sociopath. And then Operation British happened, and I think that was completely unforgivable. And in my books, that just made the Zabis completely, and the Zeons, just completely in the wrong, which I guess is where... Because when you do something so horrendous, it gets to the point where it is unforgivable, and humans, as they pointed out in the show, will retaliate, and they will fight each other because they think the other is in the wrong when they're in the right. And so you basically create the situation where war is never going to end, even though the intention of Operation British was to stop the war.
To some extent, I mean, they keep showing that Giren's willing to do anything to consolidate power.
Yeah.
And so he was interested in stopping the war if it meant his total control, not stopping the war if it meant ceasefire or peace treaty.
Yeah.
Because Giren's insane.
Actually, they all seem pretty much insane towards the end of it. All the Zabis.
To some extent, I was surprised at how normal they made Degwin Zabi, the old man, seem. In that he's really, really pushing for a ceasefire and armistice. And they kind of give him a bad final scene, I think, because he went to talk to the enemy and arrange, okay, here's what we need to do to stop all this. And the enemy was like, well, I can't do anything. And so he's like, okay, well, we'll figure out how to make it work. And he does it. He gets Commander Revel... Sorry, there's going to be spoilers in this. He gets Revel out of the POW camp and back so that he can help push from both sides for peace. And Revel immediately stabs him in the back. And he's angry and frustrated and feels betrayed. And so the final scene you see him is in that state of mind. But up until that point, they don't like explicitly say he's the one who killed Zeon Daikun at the beginning.
You kind of suspect.
You suspect, but at the same time, it could have easily been Giren the whole time. Giren is a disgusting snake in the grass. And Degwin used the events to take control. He's not a nice guy, but I don't think he's as rotten.
He's not a bad guy. He's just a bad guy.
Yeah, I think really a lot of it traces back to Giren and to some extent Caecilia. They're the two that I think are the worst.
I liked Caecilia until she decided to go hunt down turtles with that shredder outfit. What is with that?
So, because it's a prequel, it's stuck in some ways, in that we know how it has to end because that's where Gundam starts. And so Caecilia wore that in Gundam.
So she needed to wear it.
So she has to wear it in here.
It would just seemed fair enough.
Yeah. And there was other things like that. So the OVAs originally came out as the first 4, and then they released a bonus 2, which was the whole Loom affair, which was essentially 5 and 6. But there wasn't that much of a pause between them.
No,
so,
it didn't feel like 4 and 2. It felt like all 6 were planned.
Yeah, except for the huge 20-minute long recap at the beginning of episode 5.
Oh, yeah.
There was that.
There was that, but we skipped that, so that was fine.
And so there were definitely times, though, like I felt at the end of episode 4, there was a bunch of, we're going to throw in a bunch of plot points really quick that set up what Gundam will be, even though they don't really fit into the story we've been telling.
That's true. I mean, I thought it had really, really great pacing until that point with the Indian girl.
Yeah, there's a whole bit with Lala and Char, and then they just cut over to Amuro and have to show some of his backstory really quick on side 7.
Yeah, besides that, the pacing was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so episode 4, I think, was the most disjointed. And I think part of that's because they thought it was the end. And they're like, well, we got to make sure we put in all this original Gundam stuff into Gundam the Origin, which I thought was a shame. The other thing that stuck out to me is really weird was they kind of do the same thing at the end of episode 6, where they have these almost freeze frames on certain characters on side 7 to be like, this is who they're going to be in Gundam. And I'm going, you've drawn them practically the exact same, and you've said all their names.
Yeah, but for someone like me, I was like, oh, I guess this person's important.
But could you have figured that out just from the fact that they kept lingering on them?
Yeah, you could tell by the art style.
And also, if you like Gundam the Origin enough to go watch the original series, you're going to immediately see the same characters again. So it felt really out of place to me to do it. Just in a sense that if you don't care enough and you're not going to go watch the original, you don't care who these characters are. And if you do care enough, you're going to go watch the original, you're going to see them again, and it doesn't matter, so why are you telling me already who they are?
In case you forgot? I don't know. There must have been a reasoning behind it, but I have no idea what it is.
I suppose.
But speaking of pacing, you were saying each episode was probably about an hour long. I think the last one was longer, but I'm not too sure. I was going to say, none of them felt like they were too long. Yeah. Except for the last one. But apart from that, like I just breezed through them because they were so engaging, which is a bit of a surprise.
Yes. I think the last one, again, suffered a little bit from we got to make sure where our Gundam starts. And so there's little bits in there that weren't, if the story is about Char, why are you showing me a bunch of stuff that doesn't affect Char? So, it's kind of pick your theme and then tell me that story. And if you have to skip some stuff that's fan service to do it, personally, I'm okay with that. I prefer you tell a nice, concise story before you just go shoving in extra stuff that doesn't need to be there story-wise.
But I feel like it worked in the last episode a lot better than they did in episode 4.
Agreed. And I think that's because they managed to tie it together to the story that was being told at that point, which was shifting from the rise of Char to the start of the One-Year War. But that's not the story they were telling. But no, I did like how the pacing was done, and I felt that they did a good job at how they did kind of their time jumps between episodes. It never felt like there was a huge gap that needed to be explained. Like, what is it? Episode 1 ends with them going to Earth. Episode 2 starts with them having been on Earth for a couple of years.
Yeah.
They're older, yeah, but that happens as time passes. It's a natural way to show time passing. And it's not like they're back in space or they're somewhere weird. It says, yep, they landed on Earth. They got put in with these guys. This old man Rawl's still around. And now the story continues.
Yeah, it helped that they put the years on as well.
Yes.
As well as had the little recaps.
Yeah.
One other thing I thought was absolutely fascinating was the fact that they seem to have real military tactics and kind of real weaponry, at least realistic-ish weaponry, as well as the futuristic sci-fi weapons and spaceships and the big space battles. Like, I think in Thunderbolt, they had the tiny battles between mobile suits.
Yes.
And it was very fast-paced and very flashy, whereas this felt like it was a real war, a real battle, just in space.
Yeah, Thunderbolt, you don't get, like, force on force. It's more a skirmish, really. And this, you had fleet battles.
As well as, like, the training in the military camp. I thought that was really cool how they had used what I'm assuming were real training tactics and real sort of battle tactics.
Well, and it made sense as well. Like, when we were watching the episode where they have the, like, graduation battle against the station Fetty forces, and you're kind of like, well, what's the point of that? I'm like, well, it's intimidation. It's to show Zeon you're in a fight you can't win, so don't stand up against the Federation.
And it blew up in their faces.
Well, yeah, but then it also that's what I thought watching it, because that's what I'd do. And then that turns out to be what it was for. Things made sense in universe, militaristically and otherwise, which I really liked.
I can see why it's got such a huge following, especially in Japan, because Japanese nerds, I mean, yourself included, really love history, and a lot of history is war and tactics and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Even though it's an anti-war message.
Yes. And also it's fun in a way that they kind of preempted some of the criticisms that I think they might get. Because I remember when we were watching the big naval battle at the end, you were going, well, how do they keep firing all their guns and everything? And I was able to say, oh, well, they carry the extra ammunition here and here and here, and they keep reloading. And then they talked about it in the episode where the guy comes up to Char and he's like, oh, hey, you're doing more than I ever could. Do you need more ammo for your rocket launcher? So they bring it up and talk about it in a way that's not just, I've got a gun that fires 30 bullets like we just saw in Westworld.
Yeah, that's a little ridiculous. I can see why, though. As I said, like, nerds in Japan really love their military, and I imagine I mean, humans being humans, if there's something you love, you're going to be super critical of it. So if you're making something that a lot of people really love with a passion, you better get it right.
Yeah.
I bet even though they probably got it right, I bet they'd still get ripped apart for really asinine things by certain people.
Oh, no doubt. That happens with any show, especially something
Yeah.
that's had decades and decades of history. I mean, Star Wars, Star Trek, any of those.
Yeah, but like you said, at least they made it logical
Yes.
in the universe.
That's actually something that really hit me when we were watching this last episode with all the fleet battles, is that I really like the fact that in Gundam, there's no faster than light travel.
Because everything moves super slow.
Everything moves super slow. And it allows you to have a fleet battle like that. Like, one of the things that annoyed me in the recent Star Wars movies is that they tried to have fleet battles, but as soon as you have faster than light travel, it doesn't make sense. You'd never have a space engagement like that, because if you're outnumbered, you're going to blip away. And so you'd never be in a situation like that.
Mm-hmm.
But in this, it all makes sense and it works out, and you get people, putting up rear guards to protect their withdrawals and all these different things. And yeah, they're in space, but it also made me want to go play with toy ships.
You play with little tiny toy ships on a table, recreating battles?
I mean, they call it out. They have one of the characters looking at a painting of Napoleon.
Yes,
While
literally standing behind him.
While at the same time, they're pretty much reenacting the Battle of Trafalgar in space. You know Nelson's Column?
Yes,
You know
in
the guy
Trafalgar Square.
Yeah, you know the guy standing on top of Nelson's Column?
Bernie?
Nelson.
So there's a guy named Nelson, and he was in a place called Trafalgar outside the National Museum of History. Wait.
Never, we'll continue.
I'm half joking. Half.
So, we mentioned briefly Gundam Wing.
Yes.
And
I know what you're going to say.
And all the shipping that goes with it.
Speaking of spaceships.
Yeah, you seem to enjoy a different type of ship with this show.
Oh my god. Okay, so I enjoyed it and I didn't enjoy it. Because, okay, so Garma is an annoying little shit. He's such a little brat. But Char is such a slimy... He's the kind of person that I think Stacey would get a crush on. But the two of them together, there was a lot of tension between those two characters.
Poor Stacey. Should have a crush on Char, but she married Degwin.
Oh!
No, sorry, you were saying. Tension between characters.
Tension.
Rivalry.
Sexual tension.
No, they were just rivals. School rivals.
Yeah.
Garma wanted to prove himself, and Char was always a little bit better.
And that's why Garma
Totally
wanted to
innocent.
be Char's roommate, made it happen, and then it gets to the point where Garma is just a pile of butter every single time Char turns up on screen, and he's just like, he just manipulates him so easily because he's such an uke.
Who, Garma?
Yes.
Ah.
Okay, so...
He's the pride of Zeon.
Yes. And Char's revenge is against the Zabis, so what better way to do it than through their youngest?
Literally through. Oh, no, but it was pretty funny because you just had this almost exasperated sigh/squeal every time the two of them were on screen together.
The thing is, I don't like either of them, but their relationship is very easy to see. That's all I'm saying. I don't ship them. They ship themselves, Wes.
Do they?
Yes, that's how
okay.
this works.
Oh, okay. Was there any shippable couples in this?
I just said Char and Garma.
Well, you said they shipped themselves. They didn't need shipping. They
Yes.
already came prepackaged in a box.
Exactly. Apart from that, no, not really. Speaking of relationships, the one with Dozel and the
Zena.
the newly graduated high school, university student,
It's a military school, so I'm going to assume that
18, 20, maybe.
21.
But he just I want you to have my babies, and she's like, oh my goodness. It's like, no woman would react that way if somebody twice your age turns around and says, have my babies. And then later he's like, have all my babies. And she's like, oh. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you? You were a graduate of a military school and you swoon over what? I know it's probably because it was in Gundam, so it had to be in Gundam Origin, but it was still just really stupid.
Unfortunately, there's a lot more historical basis behind that than you'd think, because he's not just Dozel, he's Dozel Zabi. And there's a lot of power that comes with a name, especially in a society like that.
So it was also sort of a way for her to move up the ranks of society while also giving up her military career.
Somewhat, yeah, but it's also not just moving up the ranks of society, it's the prestige and honor that someone like that would notice you. And I know you don't think it sounds nice, but it's
to
happened.
their own, I guess.
But it's happened. But no, yeah, she and their daughter specifically comes back to play a large role in Zeta Gundam, I believe.
Really?
It is, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Did she end up getting more brothers and sisters like he wants her to?
I don't think so. I don't know. By the time we got to Zeta Gundam, we're starting to get away from the Gundams that I watched because it starts to get a bit out there.
Fair enough. Out in space.
It's weird. Like, some of the designs I'm fine with. Like, I don't know. The Cubey is fine. Cubey? Cubely.
I was going to say, Cubey is the tiny fox creature from Madoka.
Yeah, no. I was like, that's not right. But it's a similar name.
Make a space battle with me.
Yay!
Yay! Now I'm Amado, transform!
One of the things that I noticed and made sense to me, but I thought was a little sad, was they made the mobile suits look angrier.
Brr. Did they? I honestly... Okay, you keep showing me pictures of mobile suits and going, oh my goodness, look at this one, it's really cute. And I'm sorry, words, they all look exactly the same.
That's mobile suitist, Jen.
They look the same.
You're discriminating against mobile suits.
I couldn't even tell that they looked angrier.
Number one, there's a big difference between Fetty designs and Xeon designs.
Well,
like, hopefully you can at least see the design language difference between them.
Yes.
Yes.
The Xeon ones are rounder.
Yeah.
And green.
And cuter.
Yes?
Yes.
They were round and green.
And cuter.
And the Fetties were pointy and white and clean and fancy.
Yes. Also, they're red sometimes. And blue.
Yes.
Yes. And they're not as cute.
I can't tell. Okay.
No, but yeah, they, as we keep saying, Bandai have released a new line of kits entirely for the Origin.
Are you going to buy them all?
I have one of them.
Wait, which one?
The Zaku I have is...
Which Zaku? You have more than one!
The standard Zaku 2 that I have is the Origin version.
Okay.
I also have a Zaku 2 Thunderbolt version, a Zaku 1 Thunderbolt version, but we're getting off the subject. What I'm trying to say is that, yeah, but if you look at it, if I were to show you a picture of two Zaku 2s, one from the original anime and one from Origin, the Zaku 2 from Origin looks meaner. Okay. They've done a lot of things to, like, make the face narrower and more pointed and less expressive and things like that to make it...
It's a robot. They don't have any expression.
Robots can be very expressive, Jen.
Like looking angry.
How can I show you all these robot anime and you still don't understand the cuteness of robots?
You mean all two of them?
We also went to see Majin Kaiser, or Majin Z.
Yes. Crickets.
There's a giant robot in Recreators and we're watching that right now.
Yeah, but that's good.
You're the worst.
This was really good.
Robots are cute.
Robots are cute. Okay, no, Hado was cute.
Hado was cute. Actually, I really liked how they did Hado in this.
I'll give you that. Hado was cute.
So...
But I do have to say, sorry.
Go ahead.
Hado was cute.
Yes.
Mamoru was not. No, wait. What's his name? Amuro.
Mamoru
was the other guy.
He's a little brat.
He's a little brat. I just laughed.
Very different from the Garma brat, but still a brat.
Yes. And I couldn't help but laugh because the first time they show him, I was like, wait, the protagonist of Gundam is chubby and has ginger hair? It's just very different from the kind of protagonist you see in modern anime.
Yeah, well, 1970s. And he starts off Gundam somewhat in that way, too.
It's very childish and bratty. And...
Yeah, and he grows up during it.
Okay, that's good.
That's part of Gundam is him growing as well. He's not a modern shonen hero, which would just stay like that for like 30 volumes. And then they would end it and start one about his kid, which would just be a clone of him. So at least it's not that, right?
Yeah.
So you were talking about how Operation British specifically changed your mind about Xeon.
Yes.
Would you say that would affect how you felt about the Xeon forces that we saw in Thunderbolt?
Ooh. Ooh, good question.
Because what we saw in Thunderbolt was post Operation British.
Correct. But I think Thunderbolt followed specific soldiers.
Yes.
Who had no part in Operation British. So I still think I'd empathize with them in the same way that I do now, because they are clearly fighting for what they believe is right. But I still don't think the Zeon force as a whole should win.
Okay.
Because of what they did. Or at least, they even said, if things go tits up and we get arrested, we'll be executed for war crimes. And they even acknowledge it, like the high-ups in Origin, that will happen.
Yeah, that's why Raul leaves. He says, I want no part of this. You've gone far beyond essentially the boundary of good taste, and this isn't war anymore. Because as odd as it is, there's rules in war to make sure it's fair.
Yeah, which we were talking about as well. Completely unrelated the other day. But then that's the thing I'm saying, is that I think that is so unforgivable. But then again, it's hard. How can you find peace in a universe where that has happened? Because whoever wins, there's going to basically be essentially racism against the other side. I think in Leviathan Wakes, which is a sci-fi novel that you had me read.
Yeah.
That where you have the people who grew up in the outskirts of space, and they are physically different because of how human bodies grow in space versus people who grow up on a planet. And so there's a lot of racism between these two groups of people, even though everyone's human. And so I think that in Gundam Origin, you're going to have that, or not Origin, but just in the Gundam universe down the line, even if the war ends, it's still never really going to end because you're going to always have that baggage.
Yeah, between Earth noids and space noids.
Yeah, unless they brought everybody back to Earth, because now
there's room.
There's room because of Operation British. And they just get rid of space noise altogether. But then I imagine even if you did that, you'd still have a lot of... I find it fascinating on a hypothetical anthropological viewpoint of how would humanity work under that situation, which is why it makes me sad, which is why I don't like it. But I do like it, but I don't.
But here's the question, because if you brought him back to Earth because now there's room, then there wouldn't be room in a few generations' time and you'd be back to where you started.
And putting people back up in space.
And what if the space noids want to stay in space?
Yeah. I guess the problem is that...
Because on some level, it's almost kind of like the current Brexit situation, where the space noids didn't want Earth, they wanted freedom from what they saw as a tyranny of Earth, correct or otherwise. And so maybe they don't want to go back to Earth.
But the thing is that with space noids, if they become completely independent, they're still reliant on Earth for certain things, which is why they were never able to go fully independent to begin with, is because they need trade with Earth. And this is and so they've escalated things to the point where they have to take over Earth in order to survive. And also because the people in charge are power hungry.
Yeah, that too. I mean, I think that's definitely a huge part of it, is
I guess that's
Garen's insane.
Yeah. I guess that is a good thing about the series, is as you said, it slowly introduced the situation from the Zeon side, so you get a much more nuanced approach to events. Because, I mean, war is never black and white. It's always grey and fuzzy and messy and horrible. And so it shows you that this is not as simple as you might think, and things are incredibly complicated.
I think also by showing it from the Zeon side, you get that earlier viewpoint. Because if you show it from the Federation side...
From their perspective, the Zeons just did something...
Yeah, from their perspective, Zeon just invaded another side, killed a bunch of people, and then chucked a colony at Earth and killed a bunch more people. You know, most people in the Federation, or on Earth, most of the Earthnoids or whatever, probably had no idea as to what was going on in Zeon. You know, it's like nowadays where, you know the big hot spots around the globe, but there's probably small problems in a lot of countries that people just don't even know about until they become a hot spot. And so then you're just like, oh man, what happened there? Well, that's what most of Earth's going to be thinking right up until the point that the colony lands on them.
Or even afterwards, like, why?
Yeah.
There was literally no provocation
supposedly
to do that.
Yeah.
From their from the Feddy's perspective.
Yeah.
And I think I got that a lot, is that people are scared because you're so easy. I got the impression that the colonies were basically airplanes in space that people live on.
Yes.
And so if you're scared of flying anyway, imagine that being your entire life. Like, you don't think about it until you think about it, and you're like, oh, the tube I'm living in is very not... it's safe,
Until something goes wrong.
Until something goes wrong, yeah.
At which point it goes really, really wrong.
Yes, and then you have literally nowhere to run.
I mean, they showed...
and that's scary.
One of the events that started setting everything off was just essentially a mistake that grew out of hand at a docking port, where a ship missed the docking port, ran into another part of it, and caused an entire agricultural colony to go up in flames.
Yeah, that was one of the things
that was one of the
it.
Yeah, that was one of the matches on the powder keg. Was
just
there goes our food supply.
A simple mistake. At least you hope it was a simple mistake.
Well, I mean, you had the people coming in who were acting all uppity and going like, "Well, we're the Federation. Get out of our way. We have rights." And the guy's like, "No, the other ship's already on the way out. We can't pull them back now." He's like, "Nope. Ah!"
Yeah.
So, in Zeon's favor, that clearly looks like a Federation mistake because of them treating the Space Noids as second-class citizens, but it also shows just how fragile Space Noid life can be, which is a problem.
Which, again, I think is great at showing the nuanced reasonings behind things. I guess also because it showed a slow, as you said, started in 68-ish, and then the war actually kicked off over a decade later.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like things were boiling up for over 10 years before they finally head off.
Well, they also, I think they mentioned that Zeon Daikun, Char's father, was a second-generation Space Noid. So Char would be a third-generation Space Noid. It might be third and fourth, I don't remember. But, so that means it's been, 30 to 40 years in space in the colonies at this point?
I get the impression that because this is a new calendar for the human race.
Yeah.
So what was the event that caused year 0 or year 1?
I have no idea.
See, that would also be interesting.
I'd have to look it up. I
assume
if I were
it
to make
was...
a guess, it'd be the foundation of the United Earth, whatever.
Yeah. I was also assuming colonies.
Could be. But that would be my guess, third, fourth generation, as opposed to second, third. But, so it's, if he's, a second or a third generation Space Noid, and he's all ready to declare independence and talking about what's going on, this isn't a new issue, and they do a good job at showing it grow, as opposed to just, everything's happening now because we got a story to tell.
Or this person's evil because they're evil.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they grew to be evil for a reason.
Well, I mean, Garen was an asshole the whole way through.
Yeah. Well, he's an asshole, but then he grows into being evil because he has the power to help fuel his assholeness.
Yes.
And then Char is just a sociopath who just really loves flying around in his big red suit.
Oh, here I go killing again.
Yep. There was one thing, though, is I thought people were very over dramatic. Like the Japanese people's interpretation of how foreigners react. Like throwing their arms around and throwing their whole bodies around in shock and oh my goodness. And I think that's one of the things that I found really ridiculous is you have high-ranking officers of a ship who are basically peeing themselves because things aren't quite going the way they expected. And it just felt really out of character for how somebody in that situation probably should act.
It is, but I think there's also a measure of cynicism there and that not everyone gets their ranks because they deserve them.
Yeah, I could see that.
And also, it also goes back to what we were saying in that space is dangerous, and they haven't seen a war in a long time.
That's
Most of these people probably weren't expecting to get into battle. You sign up because it's a good family move, go through the ranks, get out with a pension, everything's great, you never had to do any work, and now all of a sudden, you're commanding hundreds of lives on a tube in space with lasers coming at you.
Lasers.
So I think it's overplayed somewhat because it's an anime and you can get some laughs out of it. But at the same time...
Some of the scenes were supposed to be really serious.
That's true. But, I mean, you do hear a lot of historical tales about commanders bottling, so...
Bottling?
Freaking out because unable to handle it.
Makes sense. Yeah, the series was really good. Even as somebody who's never seen Gundam before. And I want to go read the manga now because I want to find out what happens.
Yes!
But I still don't like the human race.
The fictional human race of Gundam.
But as you said, it's very anti-war, and I feel like a lot of it was drawn from real humanity, which is why it kind of makes me depressed.
That's why it's so good.
Yeah, I can see why self-deprecating nerds really like it.
Yeah. And it's got cute robots.
Okay.
Everything needs cute robots.
Okay.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed your second Gundam.
Yay! Technically second Gundam. Well, technically third, but we don't count the first, so technically second.
Watching an episode to Wing doesn't count.
Okay. Yeah, I really don't remember how much of Wing I watched.
It's fine.
It doesn't count.
It doesn't count.
I forgot it.
Doesn't even matter.
It's erased from my memory banks.
Good. Well, we do have some of the manga, and I know you've got piles and piles of books to read.
Yes.
But I think you'll enjoy it.
Thanks. Okay. I'll give it a try, and maybe we'll do another episode about the manga and how that is.
Maybe. I mean, that'd be 3 Gundam episodes at that point. And we have so much more else to talk about.
We do. I mean, I could always do it in a year time if
That's
we're still doing this in a
true.
year. Or
Well,
not.
we do hope to see you guys in a year with whatever we're doing at the time. Thanks for listening to another episode of Otafu Susume, or Recommendations from My Otaku Spouse.
You can find us at Twitter at AnnieBrosCreative or at the website www.anniebroscreative.com.
All of our past episodes are there. All of our future episodes will be there. And if you have anything or any comments, or you want to tell us that we're wrong in any way, we won't listen to you, but you can definitely write them down there. No, we do look forward to comments. So.
And if you know somebody who you think might enjoy this episode, feel free to share it with them, because that'd be cool.
Yay! Thanks!
Bye!
Bye!